Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really excited for my next guest. His name's Ian Horowitz. Ian's based out of Philadelphia. He's a former firefighter, and he's now doing real estate full time with his friend Dan. They're the co-founders of the Equity Warehouse, where they work with investors to invest money in a diverse range of asset classes like commercial, multifamily, and self-storage. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got a lot on your plate. You're probably underwriting a bunch of deals right now, or raising money, or what are you working on?
Yeah, we're always grinding it out. Myself and my business partner Dan, we're always out here grinding it out, doing our thing. And right now, we're actually working on a 55,000 square foot office to flex space conversion that we're going to condo sell off just outside of here in Philadelphia. Um, it's been fun moving back from Maryland, working in our local neighborhoods. A lot of stuff we do is across the country. So it's been interesting to find some local deals, having some fun with that. And, we're getting ready to finish up that capital raise and close on this here shortly. So it's been fun. So.
I love it. So you started off at kind of, the traditional route, doing fix and flips and, you know, getting some experience underneath your belt and, getting some liquidity, and now you've transitioned into some larger deals. What was that experience like?
Yeah, for the longest time, we always put commercial real estate up on a pedestal, and I think a lot of single family investors do. And um, for whatever reason, all through our investing careers, whether it was, it was an identity crisis, we're just two dumb firemen, or we never know how to get the money for that, and who's going to invest with us, like all these like roadblocks, we just kept putting them up. And finally, we had done a couple small deals that kind of was like no different than buying like a really expensive single family house. But yeah, we were presented with an opportunity to buy 44 units out in West Virginia, and then a 76 unit apartment building. And that's really where like putting money together, raising it, starting to structure with partners, like really came to light. And making that jump, it was no different than doing single family real estate. There's a little bit of difference, but nothing crazy, nothing that nobody can overcome. But what I realized looking back on it is like, I wish I did it sooner, number one. And number two, it was like, why did we put it up on a pedestal? Like, why did we make it such a thing? And I think that's what too many people do. They're like, oh, I can't do that. I have no wherewithal. I can't, it's like, yes, you can. It's so stupidly easy to go out there and do deals. You just got to be willing to put the time, energy, and effort into that.
Right. So why do you think that people put it up on a pedestal? What are some of the reasons that you did, or why you think others do?
A lot of it is not so much of like the asset. I think people use, I can't get money as a roadblock. Banks won't finance me as a roadblock. I don't understand how to underwrite it as a roadblock. But like, let's think about this like holistically. Like, as we started buying commercial real estate, we had flipped, wholesaled, owned and operated probably 3 or 400 houses at that point, right? Like, you could call me up and be like, 123 Main Street in Baltimore. How much are you going to pay that? Okay, done. Like, I didn't have to underwrite it. When it came to commercial real estate, it was like, oh shit, I got to start over. And then my comfort level, my comfort of my life, right? Like, it's like, well, now I got to sit down. I got to underwrite this 76 unit apartment building. Well, how do I do that? Well, I come up with all these roadblocks of like, I don't know how to do that. But yeah, I do. Cause like I already comp single family houses in the same neighborhood. I understand how to work through that process. And it's like, it's the comfort level. Too many people are scared to get uncomfortable because like, what if you are a failure? You just bought all these houses, you did all this work, but now I'm scared to screw up this deal. It's like, no, you're not. Like, you have enough resources to do that next deal. And it really just comes down to people don't want to get uncomfortable, because what worked for them to get from 1 to 5 million does not equate the same as what it takes to get them from 5 to 10 million. And replace those numbers with whatever you want to get to whatever you believe the next level is. Sometimes you got to blow up your systems. You got to start over. So instead of us just saying, yeah, we'll take it, it turned into, I need a week to underwrite it. Okay. Well, instead of saying, hey, let me just go to my hard money lender, grab a loan, or go to my friends and family and grab a loan and we'll just close on it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I got to put together a subscription agreement. I got to go talk to the bankers. I need to make sure I get my phase ones, right? Like, And it's really just getting uncomfortable with yourself and starting over that most people aren't willing to do because they don't want to give up the comfort of their lives.
Right. Yeah, it's just like anything new. There's so many people who start in this business who never end up even doing like a single deal because they can't get over that first hump of pulling the trigger or underwriting that wholesale deal or their first fix and flip, and they just never do it. And they procrastinate, perpetually educate. They're like become these like these event people who they just show up to everything and they just take this swag and then never do anything. Like it's fairly common. But then there's the opposite side, right? Which is you said, okay, that you wish you started sooner. And then I know people who are trying to start off in commercial, multifamily, doing syndications, and they've never even done a wholesale deal. Like, what would you tell those people?
You're way smarter than me. Um, good for you. And I think it comes down to personality type. It comes down to maturity level. Like, think about this. I was a fireman for the city of Baltimore. My career path, what I chose to do, like, I was excited if I could have had 10 single family houses that were worth $150,000, 30 years at the end of my career that were paid off, that cash flowed, and I was jumping for joy, and I would have had $1.5 million, right? And what did that come down to? It came down to my maturity level. It came down to the understanding of money. It came down to I was not mature enough to receive or be able to go out and execute on commercial real estate. If you would have said, hey, day one, go buy a 76 unit apartment building, yeah, my visionary side would be like, hell yeah, we can do it. And then like my like integrator side would be like, I'm so stressed out, I don't even know where to begin, and I'm gonna fumble and screw up. So if you have the ability and the wherewithal and the maturity level and the resources to go out and do commercial real estate day one, you 100% should. The equity pops are bigger, the cash flow is bigger. It's easier to get money from banks, and it's a really smart decision. But in the end, like I think really what it comes down to is getting really good at one thing. And that's what allowed us to get to commercial real estate. We were really good at fixing stuff up and we could apply that skill set. So just because you can get into commercial real estate, you should still execute at the highest level you can to um to be able to go out and buy commercial real estate, right? Like you should get really good at apartment buildings or really good at industrial, or really good at some sort of land development. And once you do that, then you can expand into different asset classes. And I think that's common whether you start in single family, wholesaling, lending, or even just buying commercial real estate day one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And so you mentioned that talking to bankers and funding these deals a couple times. And one of the things that you mentioned and like on your website, for example, and through our research is that one of the biggest things that helped you overcome some of that was like co-investing with friends and family, like bringing them in on deals, right? Which is a great way for people to start because you can do a different kind of fundraise, or you can bring in non-accredited investors, and they're basically investing in you and your ability to organize the deal and your ability to execute and operate it on the back end. So tell me about that situation. How were you able to get your friends and family to give you money?
Uh, I wish I could say it was super easy, but it wasn't. I'll tell you a little story. We had done a few hundred houses, like I said, and we did a 44 unit apartment building, and we had raised a little bit of money, but we did it with a partner who raised most of the money, and we got to this point where we were going to go and raise $1 million for our first deal, and we were still firemen at the time. And I said, you know what, like I know 40 people that have $25,000. I have to. Like, I just wrote out this gigantic list. And every day I just like pounded the phone, pounded the phone. I'm like, yeah, hey, like you want to invest? And like a lot of people were gun shy, scared. You'll come to find out like there's a lot of people who talk about it, but then don't want to be about it. There's a lot of people that want to be about it, but then don't ever take action. And then finally, there's the people that like really just want to support you and be a part of what you did. And I grinded out raising $1 million. Like, I mean, I grinded so stinking hard. And then after I did that $1 million, the next deal we raised $2.5 million done in like 2 seconds. Okay. Then we raised $4 million for a deal. I was like, oh crap, like that was easy. And we just kept making these hurdles and it got easier and easier and easier. The reason the first one that was formal was so hard was because it was the first one. And you got to break the seal, right? And once you break the seal, and you do the right thing and you execute, people are willing to support you. On that first deal, to get people to invest with us, though, that was years of hard work. That was 7, 8 years in the business of having a strong track record, having a team, showing people past projects that we've done. And all along that lines, it'd be like, hey, we're doing a $150,000 deal. Hard money company is going to give us 120. We need a 30 grand to bridge it. We could put our money in it, or we go to a friend and be like, hey, give us 10 grand or 20 grand. And we put them in. And it was just like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Then when we went to go raise that $1,000,000 to go ask for 25,000, they're like, well, you've always treated me right. Why wouldn't I do this? Check. Right. And all those little check boxes came along the way. And that was really, really cool to see. Again, it was a struggle on our first capital raise, but then after that, doing the right thing, executing on deals has allowed us to grow. I mean, we've raised almost 20 million bucks now, somewhere in there, plus or minus. And it's like, whoa, dude, that's really cool. Again, we're just two dumb firemen, but what do? We go out and execute. We go out and do the same thing over and over and over again and don't give up on the projects. And that's what people want to know. They're betting on the jockey, not as much as they're betting on the horse.
Right. Yeah, and then you start to build a track record, and then you can move from, a different kind of reg, right? So the friends and family round is a 506B, right? And that's you can only go to people who are non-accredited, right?
Uh,
Or no, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. So
Accredited.
you can
Yeah,
do both, but you can't advertise it, right? It's just
right.
it's just friends and family. So once you do that first thing, then now you're doing a different kind of filing. Did you have any guidance with that from attorneys? How did you figure out how to navigate the compliance piece of it and making sure that you were raising money the right way?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, the first few are just you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And then
Right.
sure, a couple $1,000,000 are coming in the door, $1,000,000 is coming in the door. The first few they're done by debt. Sometimes they're done unsecured. Then it's like, hey man, like we're doing something way more formal. Okay, well, let's go find a securities attorney and just hitting our network. Hey guys, like I'm looking for a securities attorney who knows what, and then Googling and just cold calling people so you find somebody you like. And that's really what it came down to, is finding the right SEC attorney that understood what we're doing, doing the proper filings, and going from there. So with that being said, we found a good one who came with a lot of referrals, did some Google research on her, and it allowed us to then grow and operate into what we are today. And she's one of my first phone calls. Like we're finishing up that capital raise on that office to flex conversion, and I have some new investors coming in the door, and I said, how do we want to treat this? Because sometimes there's times you can use an operating agreement. There's other times you need a syndication. There's other times you just need disclosures. And I said, hey, here's the situation. I have some lawyers who want to invest with me. I already know what you're going to tell me. How do you want to handle it? She said, if you're dealing with lawyers, we're doing a full PPM. I said, you know what? You're right. And it's worth writing that check, because everybody wants to talk about how great it'll be. Nobody ever wants to talk about how bad it'll be. But that's why she's there. She's putting a document in place. If this thing goes sideways, you guys signed X, Y, and Z, and you knew that you might have lost your money if you invested with Dan and Ian. And if you do, here's what happens. And there's no obligation for them to pay you or anything. Morally, different story. But in this situation, yeah, like hands off, in the air, do our thing. So, with that
Hmm.
being said, I think it is really important when you're dealing in people's money, and learn from us. Early on, we would take unsecured money. That stuff gets washed out in your operating budgets. And next, you're like, shit, I borrowed 50 grand from a friend. It wasn't secured to an asset. Where'd that money go? Whereas if you always secure and tie it to an asset, you're doing the right thing. You're a fiduciary to other people's money, and you need to be respectful of that, because they worked really, 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 I don't care how rich they are. They worked really stinking hard to get that money, and it's your job
Yeah.
to protect that money.
So you wouldn't suggest that people grind like you guys did at the beginning just to get money in the door. You're saying do the security attorney first, do the right filing, make sure all the proper paperwork's in place, even if you have to borrow the money to do it.
If you're raising money for a deal and it's going to be an equity structure of some sort, you should 100% have a securities attorney draft you a PPM, especially if it's your first deal. Now I'm talking about a bunch of investors or a large sum of money that you should do this. If you're doing a fix and flip deal and you're borrowing 10 grand from your friends and family, little different story. But if we're talking about a couple $100,000, do you really want to be in the hook? Do you want to be standing in front of the judge, being painted as this horrible person that you stole all this money from your friends and family and all these other things? Like the judge isn't going to side with you. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's such an inexpensive way to protect yourself. And not every time does it have to be a $20,000 or $30,000 PPM. Like I said, if you're borrowing 100 grand to do a $400,000 deal, you could secure it in an operating agreement and simply get a disclosure from a securities attorney. And this isn't my field of expertise, so this isn't it advice you can take to the bank. But with that being said, it is also a way to you need to secure yourself, right? Like you could secure yourself through an operating agreement and have that disclosure in place and protect yourself, and you don't need to do a full-blown PPM. That's $1,000 piece of paper. Wouldn't you bet $1,000 to protect $100,000 in the event that this thing goes sideways? Like I would personally. So yeah, I would say if you can afford it and this deal is that good, then you probably should protect yourself.
Yeah. Have you ever
Because
used any of these platforms or like portals that are now out there, like Cashflow Portal or Avestor? Do you have any experience with any of those?
yeah, so we utilize InvestNext. It's good. We were on Syndication Pro, but we had a little issue on our end, which we believe this isn't anything bad. They were a great company and we had a lot of success with them. We just had a difference in beliefs on something that happened, and we separated ways and we went with InvestNext. And InvestNext so far has been good to us. System's a little more robust, so with robustness comes a little more clumsiness as well. So that's been a little difficult to navigate, but in the end, you're providing an investment to someone. And if I said, hey, Benson, like, you want to invest with us and you want to put $100,000 in our deal, and you say, sure, cool. Well, how do I keep track of my deal? And you say, don't worry about it. Just call me. I'll update you, or I'll send you an email. And then you get busy with work and you don't ever send out an email. And you're like, well, I gave Ian 100 grand. And well, where did that go? Like all these emails are bullshit. Well, no, man, like if you log in on your investor portal, it makes you as a sponsor present in a better fashion. It makes you look more sophisticated. It makes you look like you have your stuff together. There's one form of email communication. Also, what it does is if you start hiring people inside your entity to reach out as investor relations, like all your data, all your information's there. So it makes life a lot easier having one communication platform, not only for yourself, but for your investors as well. And then it keeps everybody from calling you. It keeps everybody from up your butt, and they know exactly where their money is. They can see the returns. Like I could pull up right now and show anybody that there was a 32% return if you invested in White House Manor apartments and you got this equity multiple and we still own it today. And here's how it's performing, right? And I think that's really cool. And that goes a long way when it comes down to raising capital, because guess what? Benson then goes home and shows he's out with the boys one night drinking beers, and he's like, hey, well, what are you up to? Oh, I've been investing with this guy, whatever. This is what it looks like. Oh, yeah, show me. And then you open up your portal, and then you open up the portal. It's like, oh, here's my investment. Here's future investments that you have offering. Like, it just looks cool, right? Like, I think that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why people think Bitcoin and all this other stuff's cool, because they can go on there and look at all their stuff, and they're just trading money, and they can show all their friends, I got 3,000 of this coin or whatever it is. It makes it a real tactile investment, and something that people can be proud of and have pride of ownership in.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that too. Like if you were just raising money the old-fashioned way, and you go somebody and you're basically breaking down what they get when they work with you. And one of them is an investor portal when you can log in and you can see analytics and updates and you get all this stuff and it's all technology driven. It definitely raises, in my mind, the level of, I guess, like the reputation of the person you're investing with.
Well, it's all
right?
about
Like
credibility,
it's
right?
leveling up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about credibility. I don't mean to cut you off. But it's like it's all about credibility, right? Like I'm asking you to like, okay, let's go backwards. How many people do you know that are like, I'm giving Elon Musk $25,000? And you're saying, well, how do you give him $25,000? Well, you bought his stock, right? Like you gave Elon Musk in some way, shape, or form $25,000, but you can't see, feel, or touch it. But you can log into your E-Trade platform or whatever one you're on and see that investment. And that's credibility, right? Now,
Mhm.
me, someone who I can go show you the apartment building, the self storage facility, the ground up development that we're doing, I can show you this. You're afraid to give me that money. And I understand why, because like I'm one of you. We're peers. So like you're like, well, what the hell do you know? That credibility piece goes a really long way. Having that platform to say, hey, your money's safe and secure here goes a really long way. Showing people track records of other deals you've done goes a really long way. Having all the credibility pieces that go side by side with it, with all the case studies, podcasts, content, everything that everybody does is really important. And I was talking to someone. I said, "Well, why do you invest with this one guru out there?" Because like I know all of his deals are dumpster fires. He's like straight up, he had the biggest online platform for real estate investors. Then he has the best social media content. And when he would spam me every day, I just felt like I knew the dude. So I put money with him. And I'm like, bro, I've been your boy forever. What's up? He's like, well, you're not like really in my face. And I'm like, I get it. So like all those
Can I
things
take a guess who
matter.
it is?
What's that?
Can I take a guess on who you're talking about?
He has a different colored beard than me, but yeah, you can go ahead and guess.
Okay. I
See if
know
we're
who
on
it
the
is.
same person.
Yeah, I know it is. Actually, I was gonna say another guy, but then you said the beard, and then now I know who it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to put him out there, but the guy had was a part of one of the biggest real estate platforms out there that everybody probably learned how to do real estate on.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm like, well, why'd you invest with that guy? Like, we literally golf every week. Like, we go to lunch all the time. Like, what? And he's like, I don't know, man. The guy just seemed like he had his shit together. I see him every time I open my phone. I see every reel. I go on his
Hmm.
investor platform. I'm like, holy shit. I get emails from him like every day. I'm like, that simple crap works. But again, it's all just credibility. Like
Yeah.
guys like us who just go out there and grind it out and work, but don't tell people what we're doing, we're actually at a disadvantage. The guys that are out there marketing, their shit can be a mess. It doesn't matter, right? Sorry, I don't mean to curse on your podcast. Their stuff could
No,
be an
it's okay.
absolute mess. But since they're better marketers, they're going to attract more money naturally, and they're going to have more resources to them to get themselves out of those problems. Whereas we just do the right thing, but we might not communicate that all the time because we're out there working and grinding. It actually puts us at a competitive advantage or disadvantage. And, part of that's hard to break that cycle of just being humble. When we were in the fire department, two eyes, two ears, one mouth for a reason. Go out and do your job, listen and learn, and don't talk about like just go be yourself, go do what you got to do your job, be humble about it. And in this game, unfortunately, it can put you at a disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and Daniel work really closely together, right? You're both firefighters, um, in the same place, right? Like you were both firefighters at the same time in the same place.
Yep. Yep.
And and so like you guys decided that maybe firefighting wasn't working for you, right? For whatever reason, right? Like I remember reading that you talked about, through the financial crisis that, there was like some fragility even in like that stable job. Like being a firefighter seems very stable. But looking back, how has that changed your perspective on, like that safe job that everybody tells you to go get versus doing real estate, which, has its own level of instability?
Uh, we're idiots. Straight up. I mean, I'm good at the calling it out, right? Like the number one statement that messes me up looking back at it and going back and back and back is I would sit in these rooms and we had a couple hundred rental properties. We were still firemen for the city of Baltimore. If you guys ever watched The Wire, that's where we worked. When all the riots happened and the CVS was on fire, that was 6 blocks from my firehouse. The guy that got killed lived in the projects right next door to the firehouse. Like we worked in it. Like we were in the middle of it. And that's all I wanted to do all my whole life. And we had a couple hundred houses at that point, and a buddy of mine just kept saying, "Oh, you don't want to bet on yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I did bet on myself. Like I had this job, and then I have this real estate. Like, we're good, dude. He's like, no, like, you don't want to bet on yourself. I'm like, I never understood what it meant. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, go bet on yourself. Like, go big, go for it. And the day we quit our jobs, we exponentially grew by like 2 or 3 times. When we cut dead weights with partners, we exponentially grew 2 or 3 times. Every time we've had a crutch in our way, we have always grown. And it's just like crazy to think, like, I wish we had done it sooner. But you know what? Again, I talked about it earlier about money is like the maturity level, like having the maturity to be able to go out and do this. When I got in the fire department, I needed it. My dad had passed away. My life was an absolute train wreck. I had, a sub 500 credit score. It was absolutely horrible. I needed that. Like, I wasn't a military bound guy, but I was a fireman, and I needed that just little bit of structure in my life. I needed that weekly pay. I needed just a little bit of structure, a little bit of like being humbled. And that went a really long way in my life. And like you said, well, you picked to invest in real estate. Like, I like to say, no, they forced our hands, right? Like, here I am working for a city that is a step above Detroit. Let's be honest here. I got pension systems going bankrupt. We get hired in '07 and '08. Pension systems are going bankrupt across the country. The state of California, Detroit, private industries like Bethlehem Steel, all their pension systems are being evaporated overnight. Okay, well, that's not good. Then they're closing companies. They're threatening layoffs. They're furloughing us. I'm like, well, this is crazy. Now we work days and nights. So I was working 8 days a week. I'd work 2 day works. I'd work side work before my 2 night works. And I worked 4 days off. And here I am. I don't even know if I'm going to have a job next week. And I'm busting my butt. And I'm like, this is crazy, dude. And I'm like, well, how do I start a family? How do I afford this? Like, I want to have like some comfort in my life. And it was like, it forced me to find another way, which I'm so grateful for today. There was no overtime, there was no promotions, and it was like, well, I got to make it my own way. And that's how we stumbled on real estate. It was the best thing that we could think of to make money when we were asleep at work, right? Because we had to work overnights. It was the best way to make money. God forbid I was killed or incapacitated. It was the best way to create a legacy for my wife and future kids. At that point, I'm like, well, if I pass at a fire, I don't want my wife worrying about having to get her money from the city. I want her to take care of my family. And there's cash flow coming from the property. She can put a property manager in place. She can sell them. She could do whatever she needs to do, and then she'll get this lump sum from the city. And looking back at it, I love the job. I love helping people, but it was selfish, man. Like, I was risking my life for not a lot of money to help other people, which I enjoyed doing. But I had a family that I had to take care of. And I'm glad we stumbled on real estate because it's providing us an amazing life and a future life. And I'm very excited for what's to come. So that was a really long-winded answer to a super short question,
Yeah.
but that was deep, bro. Like, I had to go in on that one. So
No, I appreciate it. Like the why, right? The motivation for anybody has to be strong enough for them to really overcome. Like the pain in their lives has to be so strong that they're willing to do something else that's uncomfortable, right? But all along the way, like Dan's been there for you. Like you had that person, and so you guys have built this like strong partnership, and you've done all these big things together. But partnerships can be tricky. They're tricky to navigate. I've had some really bad partnerships in my life, some that have stolen six figures from me. I mean, what's been the key for you and your success with Dan? And how do you guys work that? How do you resolve disagreements? Who has the final say if something has to be decided on?
yeah, I mean, in 10 years in business, like, I can say we've only really had one big blowout fight that lasted maybe all of like 20 minutes, and that was it. And it was warranted, and that's fine. It was something that I did that ended up like that. But you talk about it is like, what's the key to success? The key to success is like, we have a common goal. We're similar age. We have common goals. We both wanted to leave the fire department. We both want to live debt free. We both want to create a company that provides for other people, right? Like, and we have commonalities, but we also have, and I think a lot of people need to recognize when you're getting into a partnership, is take a disc personality test. I'm a D and an I. I'm the visionary, the forward front man, the idea guy, and a decision maker. Dan's a D and an S. He's a decision maker, but he's the supportive role. He makes sure the bills are paid. He's making sure that everything's in order. He grounds me to keep me from doing dumb ideas, but I push him over the edge to actually go do some of these dumb ideas that work out to make money. And really, a lot of the resolution comes through early in the early days. A lot of the resolution just came through, well, is it really worth me fighting over, or him saying the same thing and it just gets done? And then some of it today is, okay, well, if we're at a standstill, luckily, we have Ryan who runs our operation, and he sometimes acts as a mediator, and he's like, hey guys, like, this might be the best decision. And it's really groupthink, and it's the teamwork environment, and having the same goals, right? Like, Ryan's in his late 30s, we're in our early 40s. Dan has 3 kids. Ryan has 3 kids. I have 2 kids. Most of them are all girls. There's only one boy amongst all those kids. So there's just like so much commonality amongst all of us that it's like it's easy to make the right decisions. And a lot of that, like, non-fighting, non-decision making comes from, is it right for the property? If it's right for the property, it's right for the investors. If it's right for the investors, it's right for the bank. If it's right for the bank and the right decision was made for the property, then it's right for the vendors who are going to work on it, or our employees who are going to work on it. And if you always put that property first, it's just like, it's an unspoken rule that we have, that it's like, okay, man, like, our common goal is to make the property perform, get it there, and then one day sell it or refinance it and have massive amounts of cash flow from it. So as long as we're all working towards that goal, and my goals are a little different, my my track to get to that goal, because my responsibilities are different than Dan's. My responsibility is banking, raising capital, putting our company out there, and picking up all the pieces to all the projects nobody wants to do. Dan's is making sure the bills are being paid, making sure we have money, making sure we have budgets, and creating processes. Ryan's job is to manage our team and making sure we're executing on the projects. Well, guess what? If I just stay in my lane and concentrate on what I need to concentrate on, I make Dan's job easier. I make Ryan's job easier because there's money available to do what we need to do. So with that being said, yeah, man, it's just having that common goal helps alleviate the fights. And I agree with you, man. A bad partnership will drag you down. Like, as I alluded to it earlier, like, we had 2 partnerships that were just horrible. And each time we cut that partnership dead, once we cut it, and then the other one, they fired us before we could fire them, one of them type of deals. And the day that happened, it was through the
Yeah.
roof, man. Like, through the roof. And it was like, we didn't need those guys. That the reason that last one, the one I talked about where they kind of fired us before they could fire us, is or before we could fire them, those guys were late 60s. Their kids were almost the same age as us. They were more in like wealth presentation and playing business because they've already made all their money, whereas we're trying to do business, grind, and make a F ton of money to get to that. And our goals just were not aligned. There's a fire burning on our business, and we're like, hey man, we need to fix this now. And the guy's like, well, I'll get back to you in 3 weeks. And we're like, bro, like, we need this done now, bro. Like, we're trying to fix this today. Hey man, like, we're trying to work. There's another one. Hey, we got this team here. We need to keep them employed. Oh, we'll just fire them. And we're like, dude, you just don't fire somebody. Like, this guy sold his business, came to work for us, just had kids and all these other things. And like, he's relying on us to have a job on Monday. Like, that's not like our goals and our belief systems were just so different that it caused for a horrible, I don't say horrible, a tumultuous relationship that finally exploded at one point. But when we got rid of it, it made life easier because we were in control of our own destiny.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like I've got a trainer that I see a couple times a week. And for me, it's like, I know how to work out and I know how to do things, but sometimes it's like that accountability of having somebody else there to help me do the things that I know I'm supposed to do is like really important. Was that an important piece for you? Like, do you think that you would be here today if Dan wasn't there to be like, come on, Ian, we got to do this. Let's do this together.
Um, the short answer is maybe. I don't know. I might have declared bankruptcy 4 times to get here. Dan's maturity level's always been better than mine. So the path that we took to get here is the exact path that I would probably take again. And I'm glad that Dan was there to guide me through that because he put me in some good situations. And what I would say ultimately is, no, I don't think, maybe I'd be bigger. I don't know, but I'm sure I'd have a lot more dumpster fires in my business. And Dan does a really
Mm,
good job of cleaning those things up. And with that being said, I don't, Dan might still be on, let's flip the question. Dan might still be on house number one if I never pushed him over the edge. Right. So I think
right.
it's just such a good symbiotic relationship that we really truly do offset each other. And that's usually where the best partnerships are. And, let's say me and you were the same personality type and we wanted to get in business together. I'd say, hey, let's take a disc personality test. Okay. We're same personality. Hey man, Ben, if we're gonna Benson, if we're gonna get in business together, like we have to hire an operations manager that's gonna keep our asses in line because we're too similar and we're gonna be visionary, 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 and nobody's ever gonna ground us. And that's why me and Dan worked
Mhm.
so well together. I didn't have to hire that employee. And in the end, I think the answer is no. I might have declared bankruptcy. I might have had a lot more dumpster fires. I don't know if I ever would have gotten here. And he is the reason we are successful. And I hope and believe he would say the same thing on his side of the house, that I pushed him to get uncomfortable and take big leaps to get to where we are today.
Yeah, you just said the word ground, right? Which is interesting because you're a licensed pilot. You like to fly around, which is the opposite of being grounded in some sense. But what juxtapositions do you see when it comes to like being a pilot and having all the systems and the numbers and the checklists to being real estate and analyzing deals and executing real estate deals?
Yeah, anything I've ever done stupid in the plane was because we didn't go through the checklist. Anytime anything stupid happened in the fire department is because people didn't follow the SOPs, right? And I know you're talking about being a pilot and how does it relate to, I'm a private pilot. I needed a reason to exercise my brain when I quit the fire department. I wanted to do something that mentally challenged me, and getting my pilot's license was that, and it was cool. But it did show you like, hey man, you got to pay attention to the gauges to make sure you got oil pressure and fuel and you're switching your tanks properly. What type of landing are you making? Or is it an instrument approach? Okay, like you got all these things. Well, guess what? It's the same thing in your business. Got quarterly reports due. I got investor payments coming up. Am I going to make my budgets, cash flows? Am I looking at the oil pressure gauge or the bank account, right? Like, let's make sure there's money in here to make this thing pump and go. And it was the same thing in the fire department. It was like, we could not leave a fire until it was out. Well, guess what? It's the same thing in our business. Like, we're not leaving until that fire is put out. And too many people just want to throw money at their issues, right? But guess what? At some point, you got to fly the plane or you got to go put the fire out. Like, you have to go in and get dirty. And I don't care if you're the operator or you're just a co-investor with us. If you're a co-investor with us, yo, go get dirty. Like I could show you 3 text messages today of people that were like, "Hey man, just wanted to check to see what was going on with the deal," even though I just sent out an email the other day. And I love that, dude, because that tells me people are paying attention. And the more they pay attention, the more they are willing to tell their friends about what's going on. But in the end, like, you're managing your money. You are your own family office, and you should keep us accountable. The same way if we hire a property manager, we keep the property manager accountable, or if we hire a vendor or whatever it is. Too many people just want to say this: I'm investing in real estate. I hired a contractor and a property manager, and it's handled. And they just think everybody's got your best interest. No, dude, these people want to take your money. They want to do the least amount of work for the most amount of money. And not everybody uh, is doing the right thing when they're in business. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. It's how it works.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, I know so many people that have gotten burnt. Especially working in Baltimore City, we would have all these people come down from New York, Philadelphia, come up from DC, Northern Virginia. They have all this money, and they would start buying real estate and just tossing money at it. And they would go through 4, 5, 6 contractors, and we would just laugh and just be like, dude, you got to get out here and get dirty. You have to control this situation and make this right. Nobody, few, not nobody, very few and far between is anybody going to do by right by you. You need to hold them accountable to go and do their thing. And that's really what it comes down to. Just because you would do the right thing does not mean the person you hired is going to do the right thing for you.
Yeah. So What's next for you guys? Like, are you just looking at bigger and better deals? Are you just always looking for the next deal, or is it just getting the next connection with that next big person who's got a lot of money in the bank? Like, what do you focus on it, and where's the next goal for you guys?
Yeah, we're approaching the nine-figure in portfolio value. We just did sell an apartment building, so it's come down a little bit, but we're buying this one and a few other deals. It's going to put us really close to that 100 million mark, and that's like a little selfish goal.
Mm,
Um, but in the end, it comes down to cash flow and just doing the right deals. And I don't care if I owned one deal at $1 million that made the most cash flow, or I owned $100 million of real estate that provided tons of cash flow, as long as it's doing what we set it out and intention. So every month we sit down and as a team and we say, let's run through the portfolio. Every single family we own, every Airbnb, every storage facility, every property that we own, and we go through, is it working? Is it not? If it's working, great. What's the plan? Do we have any CapEx, move outs, anything else? No, cool, done. If it's not working out, can we fix it or are we selling it? Well, and same thing with if they're performing. Are we going to sell it if it's performing, right? Can we make 10 years of cash flow in one sale? And then the same thing, if it's not working, how are we fixing it? If we can fix it, are we selling it, auctioning it? What are we doing with it? What does that look like? And we go through our portfolio at every level. And we're just always looking to de-risk the portfolio and buy the best assets we possibly can as we grow. So, if I buy a storage, let's talk about that office to flex conversion. We buy it and we have it, and it's like, someone comes by and makes a great offer, let's do it. Or if we get into it and it's a train wreck, well, how can we get out of it and break even and move on to the next project, right? Like, again, a lot of people buy stuff and it's just like, oh, let me hold on to it. And I was that person for a long time, right? I don't have the picture of Warren Buffett behind me, right? Like he always bought stocks and just held on to them forever and eventually it'll work out, right? Like there's something about like our best performing assets is the stuff that we've owned the longest. Of course, we've had a lot of time to sort out all the BS and all the problems from it. And a lot of our most drama comes from our newest assets. But in the same sense, at a certain point, you're going to have locked up equity. Like that apartment building we just sold, we were making $100,000 a year and we sold it and made a little over $1 million. I just picked up 10 years of cash flow that I can reinvest and hopefully make the same 20% plus return, levered return. And that $1 million, instead of making 100 grand a year, should now make $2 million a year. When we
mhm.
sell that one, we should make $2 million and then turn that into 400 grand a year, right? Like, so using at some point your cash flow, your equity is going to outgrow your cash flow, and figuring out those metrics and just continuing to de-risk your portfolio, making it better and better and better, and finding the best assets you can at the time you're ready to buy. And that's it.
Yeah. So how can our audience help you? Are you looking for people to invest with, more co-investors? Are you looking for deals? Are you looking for both? Like, what is your goal for doing podcast? I mean, you're here and you're talking about your brand, you're talking about your business. What are you really looking for?
Yeah, for me, you might think this is bullshit, and maybe your audience think this is bullshit too, but like this is therapy for me. I love telling
Mm,
people, I love getting out here and talking about real estate. In the end, for me, it's credibility because maybe someone in your audience does want to co-invest with us, or they do want to bring us a deal, and they stumble on all the podcasts we've done in the past. Hopefully, I got like ridiculous credibility with them. They'd be like, "Hey, I saw you, and I want to invest with you," or "Hey, I want to bring you this deal," or they know somebody that lives in the Philadelphia area that wants to come and talk to me about real estate. Actually, a friend of mine in Colorado referred an old college roommate to me, and we're grabbing lunch. And he said the only reason he reached out was because he saw me on a podcast. So, in the end, yeah, I would love for everybody to come and co-invest with me, but that's why you do this. I'm sure you want them to co-invest with you or co-lend. But you know what? Everybody
right.
resonates with somebody different. So yeah, sure. If you want to co-invest or co-lend with us, I would love that. If you have a deal in the 4 hours of Philadelphia or Baltimore, I'd love to check it out. And it can be any type of deal, not single family, but most commercial real estate. We'll take a peek at it. I might not be your best buyer, but maybe I can connect you with someone and just looking at opportunities. And I just like to get the best looks at the best opportunities and talk to as many people as I can. But in the end, I really just hope I change specifically. I really love helping first responders, but hopefully anybody's life and creating financial freedom for them. And that's really that's really what I enjoy. And I really hope people take that away from this, is that, you know, you can take some sort of bullet point in here and go and execute on that in your business. And hopefully it gets you to the next level and you swing the bat. And that's really what truly gets me excited.
That's awesome. No, I agree with that. I don't think it's bullshit at all. I think that it's definitely a good goal. And I think that your story has resonated with me, and I think it will with my audience too. So how can people find you? How can they connect and have a conversation with you?
Yeah, best place to find us, Equity Warehouse on on all the social sites, or equitywarehouse.com. And we got case studies on how you can co-invest or co-lend with us. I'm the most active on Instagram. I'm always happy to talk. And then other than that, I've been doing this $50 million acquisition challenge. It's been crazy over at CRE-syndicate.com. And I've been showing people how we're trying to buy $50 million of real estate by the year's end. Back end value, ARV. I don't think we're going to hit our goal. I got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, but I don't think it's going to close by the year end, due to some permitting issues and a few other things. But hey, man, $40 million of assets since July is pretty gangster, and having that in the pipeline
Oh yeah.
it's been a fun challenge. A buddy of mine out in California, he's like, I'm doing $1 million wholesale challenge. I was like, oh yeah, I'll one up you. I'm going to buy $50 million of real estate. He's like, all right, dumbass, good luck. And I was like, all right. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to show everybody how we do this. And so I started showing people, and that's been fun. Again, it's just giving back, and hopefully people can take away from it. And it really tests you, especially when you're putting it in the internet, and trying to make videos and trying to explain it to people. It like really tests you and make sure that you're actually doing this in your business, or it gives you ideas. Because again, like I said, doing these podcasts are literally therapy. Doing the videos is therapy. Talking to other people is therapy. Real estate's lonely, and it's fun to talk to other people and know that they're having the same problems or trying for the same things, and or maybe they're having the same wins, and that's just great to hear. And I think that's super exciting.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Really appreciate you sharing your story and kind of giving us a glimpse behind the curtain into your business, and some of the things that you guys have gone through to get to this point. I mean, if you'd only started at the beginning of the year for that challenge, imagine where you'd probably be at like 80 million right now, if you had started when the year started. So thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me, and catch you guys on the next one.
All right, guys. Thanks for taking a look at this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. Keep an eye out for more amazing guests like Ian in the future. We talk about business, real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and just looking for ways for you guys to get your hands dirty in the business of real estate investing and making some money. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.